On June 24, 1993, Mexican national Jose Medellin was arrested and accused of rape and murder of two teenage girls in Houston, Texas. After being arrested, Medellin admitted to the murders, signing a confession 5 days after his arrest. In 1997, he was convicted of rape and murder and sentenced to death.
During his appeal, Medellin argued that the state of Texas violated his rights under Article 36 of the Vienna Convention. This article states that any foreign national detained for a crime must have the right to contact his or her consulate.
The United States is a party to the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations and the optional protocol concerning the compulsory settlement of disputes to the Vienna Convention. This protocol states that disputes arising out of the Vienna Convention are the jurisdiction of the ICJ. In 2005, the United States withdrew from the optional protocol.
When Medellin brought the case to the Supreme Court, they dismissed it, sending it to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, which stood by their earlier decision. The Supreme Court eventually took up his case again.
Alongside Medellin's argument that his Vienna Convention rights had been violated, he based his defense on the case concerning Avena and other Mexican nationals. This case involved Mexico bringing suit against the United States in the ICJ, stating that the United States had failed to notify 51 defendants of their Vienna Convention rights, including Medellin. The ICJ ruled in favor of Mexico, stating that the Mexican nationals were entitled to review and reconsideration of their sentences and convictions.
The Supreme Court's response to this argument was no. They stated that the U.S. Constitution does not require state courts to honor a treaty obligation of the United States by enforcing a decision of the ICJ.
The Supreme Court stated that the Avena case does not have automatic domestic legal effect because not all international law obligations automatically constitute binding federal law. It was not a self-executing treaty, and Congress did not enact legislation implementing a binding effect. Therefore, the ICJ ruling did not have an effect on the Medellin case.
Medellin's next argument towards the Supreme Court cited a memorandum from the United States President that instructed state courts to comply with the ICJ's ruling. He argued that the Constitution gives the President power to ensure that treaties are enforced and that this extends to state court proceedings.
The Supreme Court again said no. They stated that the U.S. Constitution does not require state courts to provide review and reconsideration of a conviction as required by a memorandum from the President. The court stated that this was an attempt by the executive to enforce ICJ ruling on the case, but given that this is a non-self-executing treaty and it did not have necessary congressional action, it gave no binding authority on the state courts. As a result of the case, Medellin was executed in 2008.
This case has negative implications on the United States' compliance with international treaties that they have signed and ratified. This case has set a precedent that the individual states within the U.S. are not bound to follow treaties that the federal government has signed. The authority of the ICJ ruling was limited by a lack of self-execution.